as I've mentioned on here before, I clearly love EVs. I've wanted to get an EV for a long time. I think the issue is just price is still pretty expensive right now. And my car was towards the end of its life and I needed one a bit quicker, even though it still took me a while. So, like waiting in line for an EV right now, especially the ones I was interested in are like coming out this year, but who knows when that'll actually happen.
I still maintain that every year, I've said this like several times in videos, every year from here on for the next 10 years will be the most interesting year yet in EVs. And that probably just means every year that you wait, there will be, I don't want to say remorse, but like there will be way more better options in the EV world.
It's easy to say that for all pieces of tech, right?
Like, yeah, but especially one that's growing from such a beginning it is now. So what car did you get? And I assume you had to deal with a dealership to do it.
Yeah, so I wound up getting a 2022 Subaru Forester. So I was going to get a used car because I just thought maybe in 2 or 3 years I'll grab an EV when I think there's something more that fits my lifestyle right now. Mm-hmm. I test drove a used car before this one was delivered to the lot. It had 30,000 miles on it, was 2 years old, and it was $3,000 more expensive than the new one I bought. So the market is just insane right now.
It's crazy.
I'm assuming used car market is so expensive because if anyone's in those dire situations of needing a car, like that weekend, you have to be able to get something in the inventory. Yeah. But yeah, I'm super happy with the decision. I love the car so far. I'm happy to be in like a more SUV-ish, like compact SUV, I guess.
Does Mac like the car?
Actually, Mac doesn't love the car yet because I bought a cover for the back seat and it's mostly nylon and he slides around. So if I ever like hit the brake too hard or turn a little too hard, I just hear like, shh. Like,
you hear him sliding around the back.
Yeah, and it's got a little window in the like cover so I can see him and he's just in a totally different spot. But for me, it's just getting a car in like a new generation. Now I have things that are pretty standard, but for me are really, really awesome. It's got like a backup camera. I haven't had one of those. It's got like remote start with an app. Mm-hmm. The app's terrible, but it does have remote start, so I can warm my car up. It's like 12 degrees outside, so that's awesome. And then a couple other things like adaptive cruise control, which like it'll stay in the lane. It'll pick a car in front of me for a target in traffic. It's like not quite Tesla autopilot, but it's obviously like cars are getting really good at stuff like that.
I was going to say, we made a video maybe 2 years ago on when we had the Buick here, just on like the base tech stuff that comes with new cars. And it's pretty good. They're all connected to the internet in some way. Mm-hmm. They're all gadgets in some way. And they all have way more tech than they did years ago. So yeah, that is pretty good. Yeah.
Speaking on that though, and talking about the bad app, I asked you this last night, and I don't know if you confirmed it yet, but does Tesla, or do we know if any cars out there, if the apps for like preheating your car or cooling your car down can connect with like Google Home or Alexa or Apple?
So I've seen a couple very basic things with HomeKit.
Okay, I was going to say Quinn would probably know this.
Yeah, I think Quinn did a video where he had like, you can have a Siri shortcut, open the door or open the front trunk of your car. So you can ask Siri to do things to your car. Shortcut. I imagine that would apply also to like preheating it and things like that. I don't know about Google Assistant. I haven't actually seen that. I just looked it up real quick. There is it looks like a third-party service that will let you connect Google Assistant to your car, but you need to allow some permissions to make that happen. Okay. But you can probably have it work if you want to.
I would love to wake up at 7, say, Google, how's my day? It'll tell me the temperature, the weather, like the potential traffic report, and then know like at 7:50, I want it to start warming the car up. Yeah. So when I get in at 8, it's warm and I don't have to. Right now, the Subaru app is you like press the heat preset. You have to either put a pin or do a biometric and then confirm. And then you have to like hope that it works and like watch, but whatever. That's enough about that car. Like you mentioned, though, I did have to get it from a dealership, which dealerships and EVs lately, we've seen a couple articles in the news about. I will start off by saying my experience was actually fantastic. I think I got really lucky. I think I had a good salesperson, but I think we can all agree dealerships in general are like not something anyone looks forward to going to.
Not at all. Everyone's dealership experience is different.
Yeah.
And so there will be a large range of different dealership experiences, ranging from great to nightmare, terrible, not good at all. So it's good. Yours was good. I feel like we saw, what was the one?
So we've seen a couple of big
markups
things recently with markups. Yeah.
That's the one that's crazy to me. So first of all, dealerships are not actually directly associated with the car companies.
They're not allowed to be in the US, I believe.
Right, in the US. So this is this is another US centric thing.
Yeah, sorry.
But to just like explain it, it's kind of like terrible that basically you have a dealership required to be the middleman between you and the car manufacturer. So the car manufacturer is not directly selling you the car in most cases. So you have, let's give like Ford as an example, because this has actually happened. The Ford F-150 comes out, they ship them to a bunch of dealers, and then the dealers are in charge of how much they're going to charge for them, what sort of financing options they're going to give people, and et cetera, et cetera. They're in charge of the whole buying experience and servicing, et cetera. So a good dealer network does make a car manufacturer good, but it can also be a pain.
A bad one makes it look bad. Yeah.
A bad one makes it look bad.
Which is kind of what we've seen with, like, John Rettinger recently had a reservation in for the Mercedes EQS.
That story was wild.
Yeah, he gets a text saying, oh yeah, if you want to take delivery on this, it's going to be an extra $50,000.
Yeah, and the order in which it happened. I want to actually, I'll have him on here eventually. I got to have him talk to tell his side of the story.
He's got he's also got the Lucid, so he sounds like he could do a whole episode on a bunch of different things.
We should do that. But basically, he'd had a Tesla for a while. I'd watched plenty of his videos on electric cars. He was like, oh, I'm feeling something new. I want to shake it up a little bit. So he pre-orders a Mercedes EQS. We made a video about this. It's a different EV. It's a large electric vehicle. It's pretty expensive, but you get down in the pre-order line knowing roughly how much you're gonna pay based on the spec you pre-order. Then he gets an update after that point from the Mercedes dealer that he's going through that says, all right, in order to take delivery of this car, it's actually going to cost you $50,000 more because this car is in such high demand that this is what we could get for it.
Yeah.
Which is like, well, okay, I was going to pay one amount. $50,000 is a whole lot of money.
Literally more than what I just paid for my car.
It could be an entire another car. That's going to be how much extra you mark up. Even if you can afford it, like, you have to say no out of principle. That's an absurd ask for most people.
It's totally absurd. He's based in LA, right?
In California.
If I'm going to assume there's a spot in the US where somebody probably would pay that.
Oh, no, somebody will pay that.
That's what's crazy.
So the dealership knows, like, oh, the car market is pretty crazy right now, and we get this in stock, and we know, based on probably others that we sold after this, that somebody's going to buy this for $50,000 more.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get that money however we get it. So they raise up the price on John. John actually bails.
Good.
And he says no, cancels that order, and he actually goes over, and he has actually one of the first Lucid Airs I've ever seen in the street by a buyer. So I'm also super interested in that experience. I think he's making a review on it, or probably a video.
He's in the process of it. I think it's a long-term thing, yeah.
So that'd be cool to see. But the fact is, that is just because of what a dealer has the power to do.
Yeah, and do you know who looks the worst in that entire position?
Mercedes looks pretty bad.
Yeah, and it's a Mercedes dealer, which isn't directly Mercedes, so Mercedes looks terrible there. Now they're like this big luxury brand where, like, that's probably not the most uncommon thing when you have these like lesser made super luxury cars, especially in LA. But then we also saw an article recently about some Ford dealerships doing this with the F-150. Not
F-150 Lightning.
The Lightning. It seems to be, I think what we're seeing right now is this mix of EVs being hyper popular, tons of new EVs coming out, and also insane supply chain issues. So we're seeing like it being harder and harder to get these EVs. So people are taking advantage of it. It's all these extremes that are coming together to really show the root of the problem here. And with the F-150 Lightning, it's not quite the same in terms of the markup on the car, but what some dealerships were doing, and I think there was like 2 or 3 of these that there were reports on, is people would be pretty far in the line for getting their delivery, and the dealerships were asking them to pay like 5 or 10 extra thousand to kind of be at the front of the line. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Because of those people who actually like trusted in it and were excited to do it and put their reservations down early and had it for the right models that were going to come early, now are potentially getting pushed back because no one wants to add $5,000 to $10,000 extra onto a car payment. Yeah.
But there's people out there that's the thing.
Exactly.
They're doing it because they know people will pay it.
Yep.
And when you have a product that's in such high demand and I guess technically low supply right now because it's before it's even coming out, they're just jockeying for place in line. Yeah, people are going to pay that. Yeah. So they're taking advantage of it.
And Ford recently I think came out with a number of like 200,000 pre-orders or something like that. And then, so they're expecting that limit to not even be fully delivered till 2023 because of production. And now they said they're upping their production, everything. We'll see that. I'm still fingers crossed on it actually shipping. Yeah. But we do know that Ford has told us personally that they're very, very adamant about like making this rollout as smooth as possible to make sure to not leave a sour taste in the mouths of anybody who are
early adopters.
Yeah, early adopters, previous ICE truck owners that are now switching to EV. They want that to be as seamless as possible. Mm-hmm. So Ford is now reacting. And then I guess that's the next thing we should talk about is how Ford's trying to deal with this, because it's a hard scenario.
I guess the one that caught my eye was the reselling that they're not allowing.
Yeah. So do you want me to like kind of explain what they're doing?
Yeah,
Super TLDR. So pretty much what they did was they're threatening dealerships who are adding these like extra incentives to pay money to get further in the line. They're basically telling if they get caught doing any of that, then they'll severely limit the supply that they send during the first few deliveries of these trucks. So they'll just not deliver it pretty much to the dealerships doing that. And then I guess to kind of combat that and make the deal, because the dealers obviously are trying to make as much money as possible. To combat that, they're saying that they're not suggesting, but they're saying they are open to and that they support adding a clause into the contract of selling that tells the buyer they're not allowed to sell the car within 1 year of purchase.
Right. So basically that's so anyone who is lucky enough to get an early F-150 Lightning probably really wants to drive it.
Yes.
But there's going to be a percentage of people who got in line early and paid some extra dollars to move themselves up in line and get one early, who just intends to flip it because they know
or even just got in normal, like without paying any extra because of them trying to combat that. But who are going to flip it.
Yeah, people who are basically scalpers, like, you know, what the PS5 has been going through for the past like year and a half, where it's
sneakers,
like, if you can build some bot or get some way to get some early stock, it is in such high demand that you can just immediately turn around and sell it for 50% more than you bought it for, and people will absolutely pay that. And so Ford doesn't like the idea of scalpers getting away.
I think it's their like way of trying to like be like, we want to do this so the Ford dealerships don't add that markup, because the Ford dealerships are worried about losing out on that income that now just a scalper is going to get rather than the dealership.
Yeah. So I guess it's them sort of and getting more control over the experience, which is admirable. You know, I guess I understand that you want to control the buyer's experience and make it as good as possible. But like we said, like, it's my truck. I want to sell it in 6 months or something. Sure.
It's this really weird position where it's like, I think ultimately to prevent scalpers, it seems like the perfect decision of like anybody who's going to buy it and actually want to use the truck is obviously keeping it for a year. Yeah. But I just hate having the extra limitation. Like when you purchase something, it should be yours. This is something we talk about in Right to Repair all the time. Is like, you're purchasing it, you're taking it off of their hands. It is your product now. You do what you want with it.
Yeah. And
as
much as I hate scalpers, I still fully think you should be able to do what you want with what you own. So,
I also don't have a ton of pity for dealerships because in general, I don't love them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's at the end of the day probably the lesson learned is we could probably get away with not having dealerships if we went direct to consumer. If car companies could get direct to consumer, they would love to do that. Yeah,
I would like to see a kind of in between, because right now we see Tesla doing direct to consumer, and in general, I like that more. There clearly are still markups in that scenario. Like Tesla has raised the prices of their cars, but you see that when you make the purchase. So that's great. I don't like being surprised. Obviously, there are some benefits to dealerships of the fact of like, my car broke, I need to get something this weekend. There's inventory on the lot. You can go test drive it. You have a salesman who's maybe, like most Tesla dealerships are usually like, you go and pick up your car. You do most of the stuff online. So there is that like brick and mortar aspect of it.
There's an advantage.
But I would like to see like the companies running stuff like that and maybe having that. I think there's a middle ground somewhere here, but we don't see it yet.
It's going to take a while because it's a legislation issue, and that takes a while.
Thanks so much for watching the clip this week. You should probably leave a like, because if we get enough likes, Microsoft might buy us for $70 billion.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right? That's easy. It's easy money. We'll send you $10 if you like it and we get acquired for $70 billion.
Yeah, the only way we know how many likes that takes is if we just
keep going to the moon.
I like the idea.
Cool. Easy.
Let's do it.
Thanks.